Closing your eyes and just relaxing the complete body. The theme of today's meditation is to forgive yourself and to forgive others. Relax each and every part of your body. Once your body is completely relaxed, remember the times where you are hurt, where somebody else had hurted you. If you see any of those kind of images, go back to that scene and say to the person who have hurted you, I forgive you. I forgive you, but you are not aware of what you have done. Any such kind of incident which is coming to you, communicate with that person energetically by releasing a thought. I forgive you. And the most important thing, friends, if at all you have abused yourself, if at all you have suppressed yourself, say to yourself, I forgive myself. From now on, I will take care of you. When you communicate without any doubt, friends, message will be reached. It will be reaching to you will be reaching to everybody. Relax yourself now. Now dive deep into yourself by following your breath, by witnessing your breath, your natural breath, soft, tender, tranquil breath. Last 2 minutes, friends. Bring back your awareness to your physical body. Last 30 seconds, friends. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Now slowly place your both hands over your eyes for a few seconds. And whenever you are ready, you may open your eyes and take off your hands. Welcome back, friends. I hope you all had a beautiful session. If anybody wish to share your experience, you can unmute yourself and you can share your experience. If you are still in that mood of meditating, please continue. It's not must that you have to share your experience. Yes, Smita.
It was quite relaxing for me, Madhuji, and
Uh,
I feel very short though, but it is so relaxing.
mm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Smita.
Hi Madhu.
Yes, Meena.
So beautiful meditation. The music was so emotional. It's flute. It resonates well with me. Yesterday also it's the flute, but it's that quite different. But today I don't know. Maybe the initial words
Mm,
which you have said, like forgiving yourself or
mm,
starting with forgiveness.
mm.
It was an emotional meditation actually.
Wow.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, it's
Good.
good, isn't it, to let out emotions and all.
Mm, good. Good, Meena.
Yeah, yeah. We get
Yes.
so many thoughts when we are there won't be any like interconnected between from where and where them. It's like, it's like bubbles in the water. It
Yes.
comes up, it emanates
Yes.
from one corner and childhood thoughts, and somewhere it goes somewhere about future. Once we finish meditation, I was like, what? So many I'm thinking. When we
That's
close
true.
our eyes, we have so much more information.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's nice.
That's
Thank you
what,
very
no,
much.
like only when we close our eyes, we will understand that how much we are thinking.
Yeah, yeah,
There are no connections like, see, the thoughts are not interested in us. We are interested in the thoughts. The moment we have a thought, that thought leads to some other thought.
yeah.
But when we are with the open eyes, there will be so many thoughts running in our head, but we are not able to witness it because we are not
That's
idle, because we are doing so many things, so many other activities. So this is the time where we can cut the thoughts. When we are in meditation with awareness, we can reduce the frequency of the thoughts. So
yeah, a beautiful experience, mother. Thank you.
wonderful, wonderful, Meena. Yeah. So all right, friends. Let us begin with the story. And today it's a little long story. It's the education of Lavakusha. I want you all to close your eyes while I'm reading this. For the first few years after the birth of her children, Mata fully immersed herself in caring for them. Sri Ram came from time to time to visit, and these were very happy years. As soon as the children could crawl, they started exploring the forest floor, picking up little creatures to examine them and touching all the plants. She wanted them to feel part of and to love the natural world. She also wanted them to develop courage and strength. So she would allow them to encounter the larger forest creatures while in her presence. to climb the boulders and trees, and to embark on all kinds of adventures. I would often be fearful of the possible dangers, but she would calm me and say, "They are Ram's children. They must come to know their potential." This was the education she gave them in their early years. Our idyllic life changed as people began to visit Mata with their problems and questions. One day, a sage turned up from a faraway village. He was very knowledgeable about the plant medicines and wanted to alert Mata to the fact that some of the plants that had been used for ages to heal certain imbalances in the body were becoming scarce. He mentioned one in particular. "That plant grows in abundance here," Mata told him. "Let us go in search of it, and you can take some of its seeds back home." So they went into the forest. When they didn't return after several hours, I became worried. Just before sunset, they returned with Mata's basket full of plants. "You found what you were looking for?" I asked with a sigh of relief. Mata shook her head. "He is right. That plant has completely disappeared. It was nowhere to be found. Very strange. But I found its relative, which should have the same beneficial qualities." Later, I asked her why the plant they were looking for had disappeared. She said, "The conditions of all these forests are changing. Many species will disappear, but new ones will arise. That is the beauty of Vasundarama. Her world is one of infinite variety and surprise, ever changing to suit the changing times." When I was searching for that particular plant, I heard Vasundarama tell me that its potency had begun to weaken, and so she allowed it to die off. A new branch of its family could now flourish, one that effectively could treat the bodily imbalances that are becoming more common. We now have a new variety to befriend and come to know. The sage returned to his village, greatly relieved that he could continue to treat the people in need. After we had been in the forest for a number of years, the sage Chandrika came to visit with her young son. Mata was overcome with joy to see her and very touched that she had undertaken the long journey on her own with a child. "How could I not come, Mata, when you have given me the great blessing of a son?" Mata gazed at the young one and smiled. He was a good man, Chandrika, but had the weakness of pride. What Surpanaka did was to bring out that weakness. He has learned his lesson, but there will be a karmic test when he grows older. He will be tempted again, but this time he will resist. He will not abandon you, but will follow the aesthetic path until the end of his life. And he will achieve the realization that evaded him in his past birth. Pranaming before Mata, Chandrika replied, "I can never express the gratitude I feel for you, that you have given him a chance to return to the path of Dharma, and for giving me the opportunity to support him through my love. It gives me joy to see the steadiness and clarity of your love, which is not shadowed by personal desire, but is pure and unconditional. You are a model of forgiveness, arising out of true compassion, and you never lost your dignity, Chandrika. It is your love that has earned him this opportunity to make amends, and it is a testament to the fact that love can moderate karmic conditions. Never falter on your path, Chandrika, for by your example, you will bring much benefit to the world." Chandrika stayed with us for several days. Mata could see that there was something else on her mind and requested that she speak freely. "I am saddened, Mata, by your separation from Sri Ram," she said hesitantly. "People are saying that it was Sri Ram who sent you away. Why must you suffer further? You who are the essence of purity and goodness." This was the first we heard of such talk, and it shocked me. But Mata seemed unperturbed. I began to protest, but Mata gave me a glance indicating I should not respond. She replied softly, "There is no separation, Chandrika. Those who see one do not see the truth. Were Ram and I not one, this would not have come to be. He is as much in me and I in him, as if we were living side by side. We must show the world that separation is only in the mind. We must not make separation from Parabrahman, the one supreme God, and the separation from the natural world a reality. If we do, then begins the downfall of humankind. And people who say such things, they do not know Ram. It is not possible for him to depart from Dharma, even in the slightest manner. A husband who sends his wife away is not living the life of Dharma. So, how can this be? Ram is the essence of the love. There is no Dharma without love. Ignore such talk, Chandrika. It is not worthy of a response. Mata fell silent as she looked off into the distance. She continued in a strange voice. People will also say that Sita was a helpless victim kidnapped by Ravana. Those who will say this do not know Sita, for I am neither helpless nor a victim. What took place in Panchavati was by my own choosing. Had I not gone voluntarily into the demon realm, the great war could not have taken place. The world would still be under threat, and Ravana would not have been freed from his demon life. No, Chandrika, there is so much that people do not know, and it is better that way. For such things are difficult to understand, even for the sages. A great relief came over Chandrika's face. Mata, you have lifted the last burden from my mind. Mata embraced her and said, "Go, Chandrika, and be an example to the world of what a woman, abandoned by her husband and society, can achieve. Show the world how you brought him back to the path of Dharma, so that he never abandons a woman again. This is what Ram and I ask of you." Some days later, I found Mata alone sitting outside when I brought her the evening drink. It was after nightfall and the children were asleep. Mata was gazing at the night sky. Through the dim light, I could see an expression of longing on her face, something I hadn't seen before. "What are you thinking, Mata?" I asked her. She didn't answer. I sat quietly beside her, wondering whether I should leave her alone or stay by her side. "My mind is on him," she suddenly spoke in a barely audible voice. "The words I spoke to Chandrika are true. Sita lives in the heart of Ram, and Ram lives in the heart of Sita. There is no separation between us, and yet we have come into this human world to experience both its joys and pains. Though they are but illusions, at times they seem real, for we are also under the spell of Maya, as is all material creation. We have human bodies and human minds and human feelings, and sometimes longing arises. I feel his longing now as he rests alone in the palace. I have the children, the forest, the animals, the plants, but he is there with so much responsibility, so many duties, so many things to look after. Who is there to take care of for him, to comfort the human part of him? I ventured to say, "Lakshman, Bharat, Shatrugna, their wives, including your sister and the queen mothers." "Yes," her face softened. "I need not worry. He is surrounded by love and devotion. But still, as his human body longs for me, this human body longs for him. We cannot shake the human part of us, Soma, and are not meant to as long as we inhabit these forms. I experience this human body and then retreat into reality. With those words, Mata withdrew into meditation. I knew to take my leave. We had two small cottages, one for Mata and another for the children and me. When they were very young, the children slept with her, but when they grew older, I took them so that Mata could have time alone. She didn't sleep much, but spent most of the night in meditation. When the boys were around 6 years of age, Mata developed the habit of having them meditate for a few minutes before bed and then telling them a story. They loved to hear tales of the sages. One night after meditation, Mata asked them what story they wanted to hear. They both said the story of sage Anasuya and the river. Mata smiled. She had told them that story so many times, and each time it was as if they were hearing it for the first time. Since they had requested it yet again, she began. When Sage Anasuya and her husband Sage Atri were looking for a quiet, isolated place to build their hermitage, they entered a desolate forest. The trees were dying for lack of water. Many of the animals had fled, and there were no humans inside. Sage Atri thought this would be a perfect place to meditate, as there would be no disturbances. But the lack of life made Sage Anasuya very sad. One day, as she was walking in the forest, she came across a tiger who was thin and faint for lack of food. She found him digging with his paws into earth in search of water. Her compassion was awakened. What happened to this forest? She asked him. This forest has been cursed and there has been no rain for 10 years, he said sadly. Please, Mata, help us. My family has lived in this forest for many generations, and it is not right that we should have to flee. Anasuya made a commitment then and dared to bring water and life back to the forest. That night in meditation, she traveled to the celestial world in search of help. Love, love began to get fidgety. Where is the celestial world, Ma? Is it above the clouds? Mata smiled and shook her head. How many times had she explained this to him? Close your eyes, she instructed. Tapping them gently on their chest, she said to the boys, the celestial world is inside you. See how beautiful it is. She continued the story. Sage Anasuya saw all the beauty and life in the celestial world and wanted to manifest this beauty on earth. She came to a river and called out to the beautiful river goddess Mandakini Devi. The goddess arose from the river and the sage addressed her. Please help me restore life to the forest. Come with me to earth. But the river goddess shook her head. You're asking me to come to that desolate place and leave this beautiful world? Why? Sage Anasuya could not restrain herself. Out of love, she replied, with urgency in her voice. Out of love for the trees, for the animals who have no water, for the humans who depend on the plants and animals for food. Come out of love. The goddess was moved by the extent of the sage's devotion. For you, I will come, she said. If you can replicate the beauty that is here, if you can bring life back to the forest, I will come nourish it. Sage Anasuya returned to her physical form and engaged in intense tapasya. I have told you what tapasya is. The vision of the celestial world vanished, and both boys now opened their eyes. This long meditation, said Kush, and sacrifice, giving up food and sleep, added love. Mata nodded. It can take many forms, but all of these disciplines are for one purpose only. Do you remember what that is? To strengthen the will, Love asked. Again, Mata nodded. There is more power contained in the human will than all the power of Surya Dev, the brilliant sun. But we don't know how to use that power. It is locked inside of us. Tapasya unlocks the power of the will. You must remember that always. Their eyes were now wide open, and it also strengthens devotion. You mean even we have that power? Asked Kush. Mata nodded. That was a gift to human beings, but it is a gift of which most humans are ignorant. It takes much practice and training to awaken the will. Only the sages know the secret of this. Sage Anasuya had tremendous power of will, which she awakened through many years of dedicated meditation. There was a huge boulder behind her hermitage, a mountain that no ordinary person could climb. But Anasuya climbed to the top of that huge rock through the power of her will and sat in meditation without food or sleep. The years passed and she did not move. The devas were in awe and tried all sorts of tricks to disturb her meditation. Why would they do that? Asked Kush. Why would they want to disturb her meditation when she was only trying to help the world? They were testing her willpower. They saw her as only a human being and were sure she could not withstand the test of the Devas. But she did. Through the sheer power of her will, she made the trees bloom. With life returning to the trees, the animals also returned. Still, there was no water. But Sage Anasuya had created on earth the scene that she had experienced in a celestial realm. And so she returned to Mandakini Devi and asked, now, will you come to earth so that the plants and animals that have been revived will have water to sustain them? So many years had passed that Mandakini Devi had forgotten her promise. When she saw what the sage had created, she bowed before her. O great sage, for you I will come, whose love is such that you have sacrificed greatly for the welfare of the world. Sita added, your father and I visited her and Sage Atri at their hermitage, and what she created there truly looks like a celestial world. The river is as clear as crystal and is abundant with fish, turtles, and frogs croaking their evening songs. Beautiful swans graze the waters, and peacocks run freely through the forest. There is an abundance of plant and animal life, and now it is a settlement again for humans. All of this was accomplished through the power of will and love. Never forget the love that Sage Anasuya showers upon the world. Will we meet her one day? Asked Kush. I hope so, Mata added quietly. It is my wish, Anasuya Ma, to meet you again before I leave this earth. After Mata had spoken these words, a gentle breeze carried the reply, faint yet so audible that even I could hear it. And so you will. The next night, when it was time for the evening story, the boys asked to hear about Sage Anasuya and the river again. Mata laughed and replied, I told you the story last night. Don't you want to hear a new tale? They both nodded. Then I will tell you about sages Arundhati and Vashishta. Do you remember meeting them? They shook their heads. No, they visited you, but you were too young to remember. Sage Arundhati and Rishi Vashishta, both very wise and powerful rishis, were married. Rishi Vashishta had brought forth mantras that could repel any weapon, and Sage Arundhati had the power of bounty. She could feed any number of people. One day, a Maharaja named Kaushika heard about their powers and came unannounced to visit them with his vast army. Sage Arundhati fed them all. When the army was ready to leave, the Maharaja asked for her secret. How could she produce so much food with no notice, no time to prepare? Sage Arundhati was very modest and replied it was all due to the blessings of the Lord. Some of the Maharaja's soldiers said they had heard that Rishi Vashishta had a sacred cow. called Kamadhenu that produced endless amounts of milk. They assumed this cow was the secret to their plenitude and so asked the sage to gift the king that cow. Rishi Vashishta apologized and said that Kamadhenu was very attached to his wife and would only produce for her. The cow would be of no use to them. This refusal made the Maharaja very angry. No one ever refused to give him a gift that he requested, and he told his soldiers to go and take the cow. Sage Vashishta glanced at his wife, and since they were of one mind, she knew what to do. She stood in front of the cow and said, I beg you, Maharaja, do not seek to separate this cow from me, as I am like her mother, and it is a great injustice to separate a child from her mother. It is against the laws of Dharma. The Maharaja was incensed by this, and eventually a battle took place between him and Rishi Vashishta. When the Maharaja saw that the sage could repel all of his powerful weapons through the use of mantras, he became even angrier. He realized that the power obtained through tapasya was greater than physical might. He decided to abandon his position as Maharaja and engage in deep meditation so that he could also acquire powers. And he did. He became a powerful sage in his own right. But when he saw that nothing he did could match the powers of Rishi Vashishta, in a fit of anger, he said to the two sages, since you refuse to gift me your cow, who you see as your daughter, I curse you both that all your sons will die. Through his meditation, he had gained the power to curse. Mata paused as she saw the horror in her sons' faces. Did they all die? Asked Kush in a quiet voice. Indeed, they did. Sages Arundhati and Vashishta watched their many sons die. They were helpless to prevent it because a sage's curse cannot be revoked. The Maharaja could not defeat them, but he could strike at their hearts. But the curse did not touch their daughters. And when their daughters saw the grief of their parents, they gathered round and asked themselves what they could do to relieve their parents of their suffering. One of the daughters went to her mother and said, Ma, I plead with you to create a world where there are no curses, no senseless killings, no grief for parents. Sage Arundhati saw the hope in her daughter's eyes and said, Yes, that is what I will do. I will create such a world. She asked her daughters to help her. Now her daughters were very wise and accomplished in meditation. With all her daughters by her side, she went into deep meditation for a long time with the intention of creating such an ideal world. And you know what the result was? The boys shook their heads. Come with me outside, and I will show you, said Mata, taking each one by a hand. They stepped into the night, and Mata scanned the stars strewn heavens. There, she exclaimed, pointing at a faint star. That is the world created by Sage Arundhati and her daughters to show the human world what is possible. A world free of curses and grief. And next to it is the world created by Rishi Vashishta to protect that ideal world. Do you see how bright it is? He stands there guarding the world created by his wife and daughters, and it is a symbol of their love. Those two stars always remain close to one another, reminding us of how we need to guard and protect, support and nurture one another. The creation of these worlds brought hope and light back into their life. Sage Arundhati's daughters now govern that world, and it is a beautiful one. Would you like me to take you there? She asked with a smile. No, no, exclaimed Kush, clinging to her. I want to stay here. Have you really gone there, Ma? Asked Love. Indeed, I have. It is a beautiful world. I wanted to pay tribute to Sage Arundhati's daughters, who healed their parents of so much grief. Ma, began Love. Mata turned to face him. Is that why we hold cows so dear? In part, she replied. When I see a cow, I always think of Kamadhenu and the love and loyalty between her and Sage Arundhati. The Maharaja would have misused Kamadhenu's gifts and made her life a misery. To protect her daughter, who had given them so much over the years, from this fate, Arundhati had to sacrifice her sons, who were so dear to her. She was upholding Dharma at a great personal price. Then Mata smiled and added, you should look at all female animals as your daughters and all male animals as your sons? Kush asked. Mata nodded. You must protect them the best you can. Come, let us go back inside. There is a chill in the air. Once they were settled back in the hut, Kush asked, what happened to that wicked Maharaja who cursed his sons to die? Oh, he became a great rishi. You know him as Vishwamitra. The eyes of the boys opened wide. Yes, after many, many years of tapasya, he became a great, great rishi and was overcome by tremendous grief as a result of what his uncontrolled anger had led him to do. After many long years of meditation, he was able to bring forth one of the greatest mantras, the Gayatri Mantra. You recite that every morning, don't you? The boys nodded. It was sage Vishwamitra who was able to hear this mantra in the celestial world and bring the words into the human realm so that our ears could hear it. You know, there are many beautiful and powerful celestial sounds our human ears cannot hear, but through his meditation, he was able to make this powerful mantra audible to human ears. Rishi Vashishta was in meditation one day when he heard the Gayatri Mantra being chanted. He bowed and said, I pay homage to the one who has given us this mantra. Just then, he realized who had brought the mantra into the world, and his heart opened in forgiveness. Soon after, Vishwamitra came to Rishi Vashishta and asked for forgiveness. The sage forgave him, but said he had to gain the forgiveness of his wife, who mourned deeply the loss of her sons. Sage Arundhati's heart is as big as the sky. She is unable to hold any anger in her. And so, when the rishi approached her, she had already forgiven him. She kindly said, look how much good has come from such a painful situation. You have become a powerful force for good in the universe, and you will bring benefit to so many. And my daughters have created a world free of suffering that will set an example for humankind in the ages to come. The boys were thoughtful, and Mata asked, what have you learned from this story? Love was the first to answer that even the most terrible deed can be forgiven and good can come of it. That is a most important lesson. Our hearts must be large enough to forgive even the worst of deeds, but the doer of such a deed must come to understand the wrong that was done. Only then is forgiveness possible, replied Mata. She turned to Kush. And what did you learn, Kush? He didn't respond right away. Finally, he said, I am thinking of Sage Arundhati's daughters and what a great thing they did for their parents. But he fell silent. But what, Kush? She asked gently. But you don't have any daughters. If something were to happen to us, who would help you to get over your grief? He asked in a concerned tone. She smiled. You are right. I don't have daughters, but I will have granddaughters. Each of you will give me one, and nothing will happen to you, I assure you. I wish there would be a world with no more curses, he replied with a yawn. Seeing how tired they were, Mata and I took them inside. They insisted on sleeping with her that night, as they were still concerned that something might happen to them. As Love was drifting off to sleep, he asked, Ma, how did you get to that world? Is it so far away? She began to explain. While you sleep, I walk among the stars, making sure that love and peace prevails. How can you walk with no earth beneath you? Asked Kush in the dreamiest of tones. There are many ways of walking, son, and many ways of traveling. This earth is not the only place in need. There is life all over this universe that needs care. The boys drifted off to sleep, and Mata slipped out and sat gazing at the night sky. I found her thus when I went to take my leave for the night. I won't be in this world to see my granddaughters, or even the wives of Love and Kush. She spoke in a quiet voice as she stared at Arundhati's star. But you will be, Soma. You will know my granddaughters, and I will have to hold them through your arms and look at them through your eyes. I will want them to have all the freedom I had in Mithila. You must see to it. You must promise me that. Mata, why do you say this? You're still young and in good health. I was alarmed, and a trembling came over me. She didn't respond to my question, but insisted that I make her this promise. Finally, I said, Mata, you know that whatever you ask will be done by me. But please do not speak of departing from this world that I will not be able to bear. This was the first time such a subject had come up between us, and it was the first indication that Mata would not be long with us. Some days later, as I was putting Mata's son to bed, Love said to Kush, the stories Mat tells us are so different from the ones we hear at the hermitage. She must be a very great sage, greater even than Guruji. I think she's the greatest sage that ever lived, even greater than the rishis, replied Kush with a yawn. I smiled and thought to myself, if only they knew who their mother truly was. Mata continued to tell stories to the children over the years they're growing up. One night, they asked her to tell the story of Lady Ahalya and Sage Gautama. How do you know about them? She inquired. She had never told them that story, thinking they were not old enough to understand. Kush replied that one of the boys at the hermitage had said that Sage Gautama had cursed his wife for being unfaithful to him, and this was a lesson for all women. What does that mean, Ma? Asked Kush. Mata was quiet, and I suspect she was debating whether to speak to them of that matter. In the end, she decided to tell the story. I will tell the story of what happened because I knew them, she began. When I was a child, the son of Sage Gautama and Sage Ahalya was our family priest. I was fond of him, but there was a sadness about him that I couldn't penetrate. Whenever I asked him why he seemed sad, he replied that there had been a family tragedy many years ago that had never been resolved. I went to my father and asked what could be done, but Pitaji just shook his head and said, we must wait until the right moment. Nobody would nobody would me tell me what this tragedy was. Then one day I met Sage Gautama. He was among the many sages who came to speak with my father, which is your grandfather. I saw the same sadness in him as in his son, and so approached him. He replied that he had once committed a terrible deed and was suffering the consequences. So I went to my father and asked him, Sage Gautama is so wise. How could he have committed a terrible deed? Pitaji replied that no one knew for sure what had happened, as sage Gautama refused to talk about. But it was said that Gautama's wisdom and his wife's beauty were so great that even Indradev, chief among the deities, envied the couple. Out of jealousy, Indra came to Lady Gautama in the guise of her husband when sage Gautama was away and caused her to be unfaithful. She thought he was truly her husband. When sage Gautama returned and saw what had happened, he cursed her and she became like a stone. She remains like that to this day. This is what my father explained to me. Is this the story you had heard? They nodded. Then I will explain what truly happened. I did not believe that Indradev could deceive such a pure and knowledgeable woman as Sage Ahilya. I cried about this and finally determined that I would approach him and ask Indradev himself. And so I did. You saw Indradev? Asked Khush in amazement. Mata nodded. You went to Swargaloka, Ma? I asked in amazement, as she had never told me this story. She nodded and replied, Indeed, I did. It was before you arrived at the household, Soma. It was in a dream. One night I found myself in Swargaloka, standing before Indradev. He looked at me lovingly and said, Child, ask your question. You may ask of me anything you wish. Why did you deceive Sage Ahalya? I asked, with tears streaming down my face. He replied, It is the role of the Devas and Devis to test all the sages to help bring out whatever imperfections remain. This is necessary before they are permitted to enter this heavenly realm. So I took the guise of her husband and went to Sage Ahalya to test her powers of perception. As soon as I entered the cottage, she saw through my disguise and challenged me. Indradev, why have you come in the guise of my husband? I told her that I had come only to test her perception, to see whether she could perceive truth, and I took my leave. Just then, Sage Gautama was returning from his meditation. He saw me leave his cottage, still disguised as him, and assumed his wife had misbehaved with me. A great anger arose in him. He started to curse me, but Sage Ahalya ran out to prevent this deed, which would have had a terrible consequences for the natural world. She stood between her husband and Indradev and received the curse herself. She immediately turned into a stone like form, silent as a boulder. Indra went on to say, I turned to him and said with great sorrow, See, great sage, what your anger had wrought on an innocent woman who has done no wrong. I only came to test you both. Sage Ahalya saw through my disguise and did not err, but you were not free from anger and doubt. Then I gave Sage Ahalya the choice of coming with me to Swargalok or remaining in that stone like body until her husband freed himself of anger. She chose to remain so that they could enter the celestial realm together. Is there no remedy for this? I asked Indradev in a pleading voice. A remedy will come very soon, my dear. I awoke after hearing those words, and my heart was at peace. Mata fell silent and glanced over at Love and Kush, who were looking at her in amazement. After a few minutes, she asked them what they had learned from the story. Kush replied that anger was the cause of so much suffering. One must conquer anger. She nodded and turned to Love. He was quiet for a long time. She pressed him. What else is there to learn, Love? Finally, he replied. Sage Gautama did not trust Sage Ahalya, even though she was a great lady. This was his true fault. Mata said, You both are right. Without trust, there is no love. Without love, there is no goodness, no dharma. Love is the basis of all. Sage Ahalya knew that if Indradev received the curse, The whole of the natural world would be disturbed. Without even considering herself, she intervened out of love for the world. And then she chose to remain in the stone like form out of love for her husband. Sage Gautama had great knowledge, but Sage Ahalya had great love. Knowledge without love is not wisdom. When Sage Gautama saw what he had done to his wife, he was terribly distraught and vowed to undergo intense tapasya to atone for his mistake. In the process, he felt his helpless wife alone, who could not speak or move, and this was another great error. He chose tapasya over care for the one who had sacrificed so much. It was the Devis who kept her alive during this time. It took him many years to acquire love and free himself from the last vestiges of anger and doubt. Mata smiled and added, so often the sages turn to tapasya for their advancement, but if only they would open their hearts to the love that is inborn in every particle of creation, their progress would be so much quicker. I'm not saying that tapasya is not good and necessary, but if it does not open the heart to love, it is of no avail. It grants power, but not wisdom, and power without wisdom has caused so many to fall. Mata fell silent, as if reflecting on her own words. But Ma, you have not finished the story, urged Kush. Wasn't it Maharaja Ram who freed her from the curse? You are right. It was Maharaja Ram who freed them both. He freed Sage Gautama from his anger and doubt and opened his heart to love and freed Sage Ahalya from her stone like life. After he touched her feet, she could move and speak once again. Her beauty returned and she came back to human life. Mata then hurried the boys off to bed. When I came to bring her the nighttime drink, I found her seated outside withdrawn. I handed her the drink and then sat nearby. Mata said, I used to wonder why Sage Ahalya had to suffer the indignities that she did. But I have come to realize that she underwent the great test out of love for her husband so that he could overcome his anger and doubt and enter Swargaloka with her. To this day, the world deems her guilty, and no one knows of her great sacrifice. As a result of the suffering he had caused her, Sage Gautama underwent very difficult meditations. But this did not open his heart. It was only when Ram's love freed Sage Ahalya that his heart opened. Do you remember, Soma, when we heard the story about Ram before his arrival in Mithila? I nodded. It was then that I recognized he was the one who had brought me back to my earthly body that day in the forest. You remember that day, Soma? So many years ago? Again I nodded. When I met Ram, my first words to him were ones of gratitude for having freed an innocent woman from the suffering she had taken on. You know what he replied? What did he say, Mata? My voice trembled. I was so moved by this story, which had made me silently shed tears. She looked at me with glowing eyes. He replied that when he saw her suffering thus, he had no notion of innocence or guilt. There was no thought of judgment. He saw only the great love that was locked inside her stone like form. And he knew that he had to unlock that love so that it could once again flow to the world. That is why he has come to this earth, Soma, to release the love that resides in us all. That, that is who he is. That is purpose of his being. But why must women suffer so, Mata? I had seen myself how, how my Mata, a great Devi among women, had undergone so much. Knowing the train of my thoughts, She said with great love, Soma, I have not come into this world to be a Maharani. That you know. But Mata, you are a Maharani, I exclaimed, wiping my tears. That I am. But that is not why I have come. When I took birth, I chose to first know the arms of Vasundarama. I chose to take birth in her womb so that I would truly know her as a mother. This was to set an example for the world so that all would know her as their mother, and as was known in the distant past, but the knowledge is fast fading. She turned her eyes from me and looked off into the distance. I will come again and again into this world, Soma, sometimes seen and sometimes unseen, doing my work quietly to bring that knowledge back, that love for Mother Earth and all that lives. That is why I have come. So that's all for today, friends. And tomorrow we will be listening about Sita's unseen work. Yeah. If anybody wants to share anything, please go ahead and share. And what I've noticed is like today we had meditated with the theme of forgiveness, and I could see the forgiveness in the whole chapter. That's really nice.
I was going to add the same thing. I could see a couple of places the same, the forgiveness word being used and the whole story being based on forgiveness.
Yeah, that,
Mainly both the stories.
that's true, Archana.
Yeah.
That's good.
Today there was a discussion in our school group about forgiving can be done, but how about the forgetting part?
Mm,
That's true. In one way, it was true. Like,
mm,
forgiveness can be done, but forgetting part is the most difficult part. Then I just added from my side. I think it's a time take process, but it eventually happens. And
mm,
also that there'll be no bitterness and no pain once you have
mm.
forgiven. Of course, you
Yes.
might be remembering those things, but at
Mm,
least bitterness and pain will not be there
mm.
to a large extent
That's true.
if you forgive.
Yeah, true. I think Ram wants to share something. Ram?
I continued from meditation. uh,
Yes, yes, please, please go ahead, Archana. Yes.
I was just saying, like, I continued with meditation and almost till the first story, end of the first story.
Mm,
And I was like kind of dozing off. And I just like, I thought, okay, enough of meditation. And then I just wanted to be alert to listen to the rest of the story. So I opened my eyes and then
yeah.
again slowly closed my eyes again.
Mm. That's good.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
thank you.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you, Archana. Yes. Yes, Swapna. Yes, go ahead, Swapna.
Beautiful, Madhu. Great story as and great, narration. And we were told that with the touch of Rama's feet,
Yeah.
Ahalya regained her
Mm.
form. That
Right.
was not the fact. In fact,
No.
he was actually touching her
Touching her
feet.
feet. Yes.
Oh
Yes.
my God, it's like amazing how much they can
That's
change
true.
just to prove that, male domination
Ma-
and how they could change. Oh
that's
my
true.
God. And
That's
my favorite part was wherein they said that no amount of penance is equal
mm,
to no amount of penance can give that result
mm.
if you don't have that love.
I think Swapna, you're muted. Swapna, I think you're muted.
To actually open up. That's
Yeah.
what I felt.
Yeah.
So if you meditate for 10 hours but you're not trying to gain control over your anger or your emotions,
Mm,
or trying to give them love and so that they don't affect you,
mm.
it won't really help.
That's true.
And
Right.
beautiful story. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Madhu.
Thank you, Swapna. Yeah. Yes, Ram, please go ahead.
Her story was beautiful, and the messages that were hidden inside, I think there are infinite number of messages. I loved the way the interaction between the mothers and Love and Kush was happening, and how she was asking, what is the moral of the story, and each one come out with such beautiful explanations, such nice reflections on the life stories that they are hearing. They are it's really beautiful to hear these stories. You know, so
Yeah.
mm, my takeaway today is about forgiveness. It's
Mm,
like, um, what was that sentence? There was one sentence that said, uh, however big is the mistake, something like that. Yeah,
mm-hmm,
any mistake can be forgiven.
mm-hmm,
So we all kind of many times come across situations, come across moments in our life where we find this is an unforgivable mistake,
mm,
and we stick to it. And sometimes we hear people who even died having
mm,
this grudge or whatever and not forgiving people.
mm,
So these stories, I think, they somehow awaken within us certain knowing that what we think of forgiveness is nothing, or rather, let's say, we can even go to whatever extent possible in order to release ourselves.
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
And that's the real way of understanding what love is.
Wow.
And it's really beautifully put in these stories, and uh, very, very deep, very deep.
Yeah.
Every line, I think we can just stop at one line and leave 1 hour and just reflect upon that line. Such deep are these sharings.
Wow.
So wonderful.
That's
Thank you.
great. Thanks, Ram, for sharing. Yes, Meena.
Yeah, about that forgiveness, where there is love, I think we will develop forgiving. If we have utmost love to someone, we forgive as well, isn't it? But how about our parents or our grandparents? They hold so much, I don't think so, grudge or anger, I say, but they won't forgive some people for years and years for the
Mm,
mistake they did until
mm,
they die. Even on the deathbed, they say, "Oh, I don't want to see you."
mm.
I've seen these incidents happening in real life.
Yes,
So why is that not put into practice? The
yes.
forgiving then. Is it that hard to forgive people? If looking at all this history of our Ramayana and all, how
Mm,
they have forgiven and all, whatever mistakes, it may be mistake or anything, whatever we are making, we did, it's not that big. It's not like they can't forgive that. But
mm.
why do they hold for 40 years, 30 years,
Yes.
not forgiving people? I don't understand this.
Yeah. This is where we have to work, Meena. I think a couple of years back, my father's sister passed over. Before she was when she was on her deathbed, I was here in Germany. So she was there in India. So like when she was on her deathbed, I called to her daughters, my aunt's daughters, my cousins, and I asked them, please sit with her, next to her, and tell her to forgive the ones who have hurted her, and ask for forgiveness as well. So so that she can be free.
Mm,
Otherwise, if we don't educate them, if we don't tell them, all these things, they will never learn. See, always our elders think that how can we learn from the children, right? So they think that what are you teaching me? I'm the eldest. So many parents have these kind of thoughts, but still we have to keep trying to educate them. And this is what I did. And thanks to my cousins that they've done that, and they have asked her to do that, and tears were welling out of her eyes, and like, and surely she might have passed over, with a freeness in her heart, not heaviness in her heart. So I think this is what we all should do. If we know all these stories, so they don't know all these stories, they have been put into the belief system. There's so much, the control, everything is controlled. So now it is a time for us to educate them, that yeah, like telling them the metaphors, like these stories, now what we are hearing. So in that way something will click in them, I'm sure. Like it, if it had clicked in us, it will surely click in them, because we are all one and the same.
Yeah, because my grandmother, if I say, she will say, I'll say, oh, that is past, leave. Why are you still angry with them? She'll say, you shut up.
Ah,
They
yes.
won't listen.
So you don't know, you don't have to tell them all these things to forgive them, but what you can do is you can tell them these stories, like the stories you tell, a grandmother, I want to tell you a story which I've heard recently. So you communicate with her in that way, that like the stories, instead of words just telling them one line sentence, they will not listen. But if you tell them a story, then they will reflect upon. This is
Sure.
this is my experience. I always tell stories so that something will happen in them, surely. If I say something, okay, you do this, they will never do that. Nobody will do that, because it is something that, like I'm coming from a authoritative place. It is coming, hey, hey, grandma, forgive them, like. But instead, if you sit with them, if you talk to them, and you tell them a story, and then you leave it to them, and then gradually they will think upon it, and they will work to forgive. Yeah, this is my experience.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Thank you, Mother. We'll
yeah,
try that. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you, Mina. And yes, anybody else, friends?
Uh,
Yes.
one more thing I just want to mention. In
Yes.
most of our epic story,
Mm-hmm.
especially in pictures,
Mm.
they portrayed more of the luxury and things and not the real moral.
Yeah.
Like about the forgiveness,
Mm.
all these things, they did not stress much.
Yes. Yes.
Of course, their male domination was there. At the
Mm.
same time, they didn't stress much on all these qualities. Rather of course, it's a picture,
Mm.
but only through those we grew up,
Yes.
looking at and gaining knowledge through those. Instead of
Mm.
reading more and more books when we were
Mm.
young.
Mm.
So now, actually, it's a different dimension when we go through all these stories and reading them.
Yeah.
um, how beautiful and how much message was there hidden.
Very true, Balaji. Like we completely resonate with it. It's like we know that yes, this is the truth. What I've been hearing in Ramayana or any other epic story, there was something which was missing. When
Yeah,
we read this, you see a clear picture. As Swapna was mentioning that, it's not Ahalya who had touched the
yeah,
feet of Sri Ram. it
yeah.
was
The
it
other
was
way.
Sri Ram who had touched Ahalya's
Yes.
feet. That means he had respected her so much. There is
Yeah.
so much of respect for this great sage. So that's why he bowed down to her. So there is so much of confusion that has been put into the real story. Like in the to the original story. They have so much of manipulation, I think.
That's
Yeah,
true. Even, towards the Sita's life also, we come to know how much they manipulated and how much truth hidden,
yeah,
through, Maria Madam.
yeah.
How it's wonderful. It's wonderful to
Yes,
know all
very true.
this.
Very true.
Thanks a
Yeah.
lot for
Thank
nicely
you.
narrating.
Yeah, thank you, Balaji. Thank you so much. So, all right, friends, then we'll
No,
see. Yes, Ram, you want to say
in
something?
in all these discussions, I again find a wonderful opportunity for all of us to forgive,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Like, I don't
Oh,
know
yes, yes.
who it was. I think Minaji was speaking about the grandparents. Somehow we feel why they are not listening. Again, there was the story, right? Maharshi Gautama, although he was such a great master, he
Mm,
could not overcome anger.
right.
And
Yeah.
there again, we have a message that even though we do a lot of spiritual practice, we have to become aware of things that that we can still learn. Let's put like that. So there is always something, and I think every lesson, every emotion is our own master.
Maybe that
So
hidden ego we need to
yes,
get rid of. Yeah.
yes. So I think forgiving is is a very, very powerful word. And as I think it was Archana ji mentioning, it's all about love. So when we touch to that part of love and we really experience it, there is no need to forget, or let's say no need to forgive, because we already resonate love. So it's wonderful today. Thank you.
Mm, thank you so much, Ram.
Thanks a lot, Madhu. And last night I heard your
Oh, you did?
session.
How was it? How was
Very,
it,
very
Balaji?
nice. Very nice.
Yes, that's great.
And I actually, after I listened to your session this morning, I meditated on Hari Krishna's Pleiadian,
Mm,
um,
mm,
on that.
mm.
Wonderful. I
Wow,
felt so good.
wonderful. Wow, that's great.
Very nice.
Great, great, Balaji. Good to hear that.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. So friends, we will again see each again tomorrow morning. Do not forget that we will be having Master Sharu's session at 6 a.m. Germany time and 9:30 a.m. India time. In the evening, we will meet at the same time. Till then, have a lovely day, lovely evening, and a lovely night. Namaste to all.